Hello everyone, and welcome to Puppy, a short visual novel for Spooktober Jam, I do believe, or something like that. It looked interesting, a little foreboding based on the main menu, wouldn't you say? But hey, we're just gonna get into it and see what it's all about. This would be the first time I've also used this model for reading visual novels, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, let's get into it. Well, hello there, little guy. Eleanor had stopped at a cardboard box on the street as she walked home to her apartment. In the box was a small dog, and scrawled untidily on the front of the box were the words, "Adopt me." The dog cocked its head as she slowly reached a hand towards it. "It's okay, buddy, I'm not going to hurt you." Eleanor scratched around its neck as she suddenly felt around for a collar and found none. The dog looked too good for a complete stray. The dog's fur was soft and fluffy, and its tail loudly thumped against the box it was in as she scratched it. "You like that, do you? Well then, have some more." Eleanor reached out her other hand, and scratched both sides of the puppy's face and around its head. The dog's tail happily wagged, and it started trying to lick her hands before jumping out of the box into her arms. Caught off guard and losing her balance from the hunkered down position she was in, she fell backward and was unable to stop the puppy from licking her face as she tried to pick herself up. "Hey, cut it out, you little rascal." Eleanor laughed as she tried to fight off the little fluff monster and his cold nose and wet tongue attacks. Finally, righting herself, she set the puppy back in the box he had jumped out of. "Aren't you just the sweetest little guy?" She looked around to see if there was someone else around looking for the puppy. There's no way a little guy as well-groomed and friendly as this was just dumped here, right? The street was empty. It was late-ish, but it had only started getting dark. Eleanor watched as the streetlights clicked on one by one from the far end of the street to the other. So she pulled her jacket closer to her as a cold breeze blew past. Looking into the box, the puppy had obviously felt the same cold wind and curled itself up into a ball and quietly started to whimper. "Aw. Are you cold, little guy? You were so full of life a second ago, poor thing." Well, with no tag or collar and nobody around looking for him, the chances of the little pup spending the night shivering on the streets were looking pretty high, but Eleanor wasn't about to let that happen. "Well, I can't very well leave you out here in the cold, so why don't I take you home with me, and then we can put up posters or something just in case someone really is missing you. And a sweet little thing like you wouldn't want you... And a sweet little thing like you, who wouldn't want you around?" The puppy looked up at her happily, its tail once again thumping loudly off the cardboard box that it was sitting on. Or just the cardboard, I guess. I don't know if it was in a cardboard box or not. Or just on a cardboard pile, I can't remember now. "Come on, let's take you home." Eleanor bent down to pick up the puppy, and as she lifted it, the streetlight above them flickered out. "Huh," she said, looking up at the now dark light. "Guess that one needs a replacement bulb." "Well, actually..." So it's like, sometimes like street lamps will turn off because like it's, there's like, what is it called? There's like times where the street light will get too hot, I do believe, and they shut off. I've had times where it's like I've just randomly casually walked, and then suddenly the street light, the street lamp I happen to be walking underneath just turns off. And it's usually, I think, for not power consumption, but like if it builds up too much heat, then it will shut down briefly and then turn back on later. But the more you know. "All the more reason to get you home then." She spoke to the puppy as she tucked it into her jacket and held onto it. The light flickered back on as she started to walk away and continued to flicker behind them as they left it behind. Eleanor didn't live very far away, which was lucky, because by the time she reached the door, her dog-holding arm was starting to ache from the extra weight of the puppy. "Phew, carrying you around is a lot more work than I was expecting." Eleanor spoke to the puppy as she set it down in front of the door. "Now, don't run away on me, I just had to find my keys." She rummaged around in her jacket pockets for the key to her ground floor apartment while watching the small dog sniff around her feet and the door. She watched the dog happily sniffing her boots as she reached for the keys to the door to unlock it. The key went in easily enough, but once she went to turn it, she felt something brush against her hand. "Jesus Christ!" Eleanor instinctively pulled back her hand, and her keys fell to the ground, along with the creature that touched her. "Oh, it's just a spider. Fucking hell. Scared the shit out of me. Aren't you a big one, though?" That's got to be at least an inch across. Ugh. God, no. Let me take a peg to send a puppy. Eleanor reached into her pocket to get her phone out while keeping an eye on the spider. As it scurried around, the spider caught the attention of the puppy, who watched it closely before jumping on it and catching it under its paw. Whoa, with reflexes like that, if being a dog doesn't work out for you, you could always try being a cat. Now let the poor thing go. Eleanor cut the sentence short with a gasp as the puppy proceeded to eat the spider. That's gross. That's really gross. But some animals do that, you know, protein. Something like that. It's just disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. I wouldn't want to watch that. If I saw that happening, I would turn around. I'd be like, just imagine that dog would eat that spider, and then that dog's going to lick your face afterwards. That means the spider's guts, the spider's legs, the spider's chunks, they'll be on the dog's tongue, and then they're going on your face and on your lips. Do you want that happening? I don't think so. Dude, that's nasty. The puppy looked up at her proudly, like it had stopped some vicious assailant from harming its new master. Okay, I can't stay mad at that little face. It's still gross, but you did well. Good job protecting me. She pets the puppy on the head. I hope you will always protect me. The puppy let out a sharp bark as if to agree. Anyways, let's get you inside, and before you go running around, we're going to give you a bath. You look clean enough, but I did just pick you up off the street, and the last thing I need is you bringing in fleas or something. Suddenly it's just all quiet now. It was early when Eleanor awoke. She wouldn't usually get up so early since her work shift started later in the day, but she needed to visit the pet shop before work since she didn't have much in the way of food and things. I guess I'll just have to put some music in myself. I don't know why there's just no volume, there's no music. It just became dead quiet all of a sudden. The things I do for you, she sighed, handing the puppy another piece of ham, which it gobbled up. After all, we can't just have you living off of leftover ham as much as you seem to enjoy it. The puppy let out a yip as if to agree. Glancing at her watch, she go up? Okay, now like the typos are starting to appear. Anyways, glancing at her watch, she got up and grabbed her coat. Proofreading is important. The puppy started to whine sadly as if it knew she was leaving. Don't worry, little guy, I'm gonna go to the pet shop and come back. It's not too far, so I should have plenty of time before I have to go to work. The puppy let out an understanding yip as she ruffled the hair on its head. The puppy's too understanding, but we already probably know where this is going anyways. Eleanor was greeted at the door by the neighbor's cat, Miss Okay, well that cat's gonna die. Hello there, kitty cat. Marmalade sat in the front door expectantly. Sorry, Marm, I'm under strict orders not to be offering you any extra food ever since you got your big butt stuck in the cat flap. Phyllis says you've been going door to door begging for scraps after she goes to work. Marmalade started to meow in protest. Eleanor felt something bump into the back of her leg as the puppy came to see what was going on. Seeing the dog, Marmalade jumped onto four legs and arched her back, hissing loudly at the dog. Come now, Marm, it's just a little puppy, no need to get all worked up. She could hear the puppy happily panting behind her, and added, See, it's very friendly. Eleanor reached down to try and calm the cat, and it swiped at her, catching the back of her hand. What a bastard of a cat. Son of a... She felt the sting, and looking at the back of her hand, saw a few droplets of blood start to form at the edges of the scratch. Now you have to get checked for infection, because cat's claws are really dirty, let me tell you, man. If you get scratched by a cat or bit... Actually, yeah, it's biting. I'm not sure about claw. If a cat bites you, the kind of bacteria that can be in a cat's mouth and teeth, that can get any wound they make on you pretty much infected. There's a high chance of it at the least. The puppy started to growl at the cat, and then, with a few barks, the cat took the hint and ran away. Shit, that stings, but it doesn't look too deep. Eleanor turned to the puppy, who was still growling in the direction the cat ran off to. Don't worry, little buddy, I'm fine. See, it's just a scratch, she said, showing the puppy her hand. The puppy started to lick the blood off the back of her hand before she pulled her hand back. Hey, cut that out, you little scamp. Wiping the saliva on the back of her trousers, she stood up. Anyways, I better be off while I still have time. You be good while I'm gone, the puppy barked happily in response, and she left. It's just a little bit too, I don't know, I'm gonna say it's probably more the writing than maybe the character itself, but like the puppy responding to absolutely everything in full understanding, it'll probably be, yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, it's We'll see what kind of happens. Like the main menu spoils what happens, basically, but I'm kind of curious, I guess, how intelligent is it? But we'll see. It wasn't long before Eleanor got back with a shopping bag full of things. She had to push past the excited puppy who was trying to jump on her while she was tried to enter the apartment. All right, can you at least let me come in first? The dog barked excitedly. And after finally closing the door, Eleanor turned into her apartment with horror. What have you done? There were little brown footprints leaving little trails back and forth across the apartment floor. She took a look at the puppy, who now sported 4 little brown, dirt-covered legs. The puppy looked up at her happily, seemingly unaware of the mess it had made. She went around and examined the damages. Luckily, it seemed that apart from the floor and the cushion she had laid down for the puppy as an impromptu doggy bed the night before, everything else was still clean. Okay, maybe it's not too bad, she mumbled, half expecting the whole house to be covered in mud. She walked out the back door into the garden to see the mounds of dirt the puppy had obviously been digging through. It was a small garden fenced off, so it wasn't a huge deal if the puppy had been playing out there. Well, I mean, how did it get out into the garden? Is it just like that this person didn't own cats or dogs, but they had a doggy door and it could just run wherever it wanted? Or they'd leave a door open without telling me how to get outside and all that? Okay, we'll see. And she didn't really go into the garden much, so even the digging itself didn't bother her too much, if not for the muddy footprints. How did you even get out here? I need to make sure I lock the door when I'm leaving. Okay, so it's unknown. She pulled out a small paddling pool that had been propped up in the side of the shed for as long as she had lived there, and she ran a hose into it, filling it up. Alright, I don't really care if you're playing out here, but I can't have you tracking mud all through the house. She spoke sternly, picking up the puppy before plopping it into the shallow pool. The puppy started to excitedly play with the pool water, while Eleanor focused the hose on spraying the remaining dirt off its legs. She went inside and grabbed a towel before lifting the puppy out of the pool and drying off as much water as possible. The puppy shook his body to get rid of whatever remained. Leading the puppy back inside, Eleanor turned the key in the door, locking it behind her. She then went to her shopping and pulled out a little bowl and a can of dog food before filling the bowl and setting out. Here you go. Eat this and stay out of trouble while I mop the floor. After she finished mopping, she grabbed a dog cushion and replaced the dirty cushion and threw a handful of toys on the floor next to it. Sorry, I don't have time to play with you much now because I spent all that time cleaning and now have to get to work. She spoke apologetically as she left the puppy, who was now rolling around with one of the toys she had bought, happily squeaking away. By the time Eleanor returned home, it was already starting to get dark. She opened the door, praying that there wasn't going to be another repeat of this morning. "I'm home," she called out, but was surprised to not receive a response. That's strange. The apartment was eerily quiet, and after removing her coat, she reached over to turn the light and spotted the puppy. The puppy was lying on the floor with its legs in the air, its head under the sofa, sleeping soundly. Its toys were spread all around the floor, but looking under the sofa, Eleanor could see that there was a ball just out of the puppy's reach. Oh, the poor guy must have fallen asleep while trying to get the ball. "Hey there, little buddy," she spoke softly, gently rubbing its belly. The puppy stirred, wiggling itself upright and removing its head from under the sofa. Then, realizing that Eleanor was back, it excitedly started to bark and lick and jump all over her. "Like I said, spider guts." Calm down there," she rubbed the dog all over. "Seems like you had a fun day. Why don't we take you for a short walk before I make myself dinner? I'm sure being cooped up in here all day wasn't great." After fitting the excited animal into a cute little harness and attaching the lead, and left the apartment. "Hello, dear." Eleanor jumped a little at the unexpected voice behind her. She turned around to face the old lady who had lived a few apartments down from her. "Oh, hi, Phyllis. What's up?" Phyllis doesn't have a model. "Have you seen Miss Marmalade? I haven't seen her all day." I wonder. "Haven't seen her all day, and it's not like her to not be home in time for dinner, you know." "Oh, I saw her this morning. She came looking for food as usual, but ran off when she saw this little guy. She got me good before she left." Eleanor glanced at the back of her hand. It still itched from where she had been scratched. "I didn't realize she had a thing about dogs, since she's normally so chill." Phyllis frowned. Normally she's fine with dogs. Maybe you caught her in a bad mood." "Maybe. Anyways, I do hope she's okay. I'll let you know if I see her around." "I'm amazed there's just no blood anywhere." "Well, maybe the garden, but "Please do," Phyllis replied with a worried expression, and left Eleanor and the puppy standing outside the apartment. "Okay, let's go for that walk, pup." The puppy let out an excited bark and they headed off into the evening. Eleanor walked down the street with the puppy in tow. It seemed like it was its mission to sniff every single spot it passed, leaving Eleanor playing hot potato with which hand was holding the lead. Can you just pick a side and stick with it? We'll come back this way so you can check out the other side of the path too. The puppy ignored her pleas and continued its mission. Every so often a spot would take an extra long sniff, followed by it marking the spot. I wonder if this lady has as much trouble with her 2 dogs as I do with you, Eleanor remarked, spotting a woman walking 2 large dogs in front of her. Why did you stay over this side until they pass? You never know how other people's dogs are. The puppy happily wagged its tail as the other dogs came closer. However, as soon as they saw the puppy, their body language changed. Suddenly, the lady's arm was tugged forward as she struggled to hold the dogs back as they snarled and barked at the puppy. "Holy shit!" Eleanor exclaimed, reflexively snatching the puppy up out of reach of the other dogs. "No, bad, stop!" The lady struggled to control her dogs. "I bet they were pitties." I'm so sorry, she apologized, obviously flustered. Eleanor quickly walked away with the puppy in her arms, glancing behind her to see the lady dragging the dogs, who were still riled up, in the opposite direction. "I swear people shouldn't have dogs if they can't control them," Eleanor spoke loudly to herself. A little ironic, but that's an accident waiting to happen. How are you holding up, though? Hopefully it wasn't too stressful facing those big, scary dogs. The puppy just quietly watched the other dogs over her shoulder until they turned a corner. Wait, is the puppy a male or female? I'm confused now. I'm losing track now, but It wasn't long before they arrived at an open grassy area, and after making sure the coast was clear, Eleanor let the puppy off the leash to run around. Probably a big mistake. You go have fun and hopefully tire yourself out. Ding! Eleanor's phone went off as she watched the puppy run around in circles. Are we still on for tonight? Oh shit! In the excitement of getting a new puppy, she had forgotten that she had plans with a guy she had started seeing recently. I'm gonna be straight with you, I totally forgot about tonight. But I got a good excuse. Ugh, something's in my eye. I got a good excuse. Oh really, do tell. Eleanor raised her camera and took a picture of the puppy rolling around in the grass in front of her. I picked up a stray dog. I'm more of a cat person myself. It's okay, all animal lovers are good in my book. I feel bad about blowing you off. Would you like to come over to mine instead? I've been told I make a mean what? I make a mean lasagna? Something. Then remembered the lack of proper ingredients. I guess she was interrupted. Could put a dash in there. Usually a dash means they got cut off. It's hard to tell if it was just cut off or they just didn't put in the word for what meal they're going to talk about. Then remembering the lack of proper ingredients to make the what now? Takeaway what? Then remembering the lack of proper ingredients in her kitchen at the moment, she added, needs more punctuation and dashes and maybe quotations. Takeaway order. How could I say no to that? I'll bring some wine then. Wine? Just send me the address and I'll be there around 8ish. More of a cat person and you have wine. A little bit of a stereotype maybe. Eleanor quickly tallied up the time it would take to get home and get ready and decided that it was just about enough time. Sounds like a plan. Alright, puppy, we gotta bounce. I gotta clean myself up before he gets here, just in case. Just in case. Eleanor winked at the puppy, who remained oblivious to its meaning. Eleanor and the puppy walked home briskly with only a few sniffs and a few marked breaks along the way. Upon arriving home and removing the harness, the puppy ran to the back door and started scratching to be let out. You could have just gone while we were out, right? Okay, tell you what, she spoke looking at her watch. You play out here for a while, I'm gonna go take a shower and get ready. Eleanor grabbed a ball from the floor and, after opening the door, threw it into the yard. The puppy chased after it and started playing around with the ball. Alright, you have fun. Eleanor closed the door and left the dog to play. Ding! Eleanor's phone buzzed as she finished drying her hair with a hairdryer. I'm on my way over. See you in about 20 minutes. Perfect. Eleanor looked at herself in the mirror. You look as good as you're going to at this point. She couldn't help but get excited at the prospect of having him over. They had gotten along well on their last few dates, and she definitely felt a spark between them. As she walked through the house doing one last bit of tidying, she heard a yip and some scratching at the back door. "Oh, you want back in?" Eleanor opened the door and the puppy wandered in, leaving little wet footprints on the kitchen floor. "Wait, why are your feet wet? Were you playing in the pool?" Eleanor peeked out into the yard to see if the pool was where she left it, but it had already gotten dark, so it was hard to make out anything in the yard. "I really need to get that backlight fixed," she sighed as she flicked the switch and nothing happened. "Anyways, come here and I'll dry you off. Last thing I need is you leaving wet patches everywhere." Eleanor grabbed a towel from the laundry basket and dried off the puppy, who really seemed to enjoy the attention. "Okay, he should be here soon. How do I look?" The puppy gave an approving bark. "Thanks. Now you be a good puppy, okay?" The puppy gave another approving bark. The puppy is a little bit too sentient, but again, we'll have to see. "David, hi, come on in." Eleanor invited the young man in. He had arrived exactly on time, though after a few drinks admitted that he had waited awkwardly outside for 5 minutes so he wouldn't seem too eager. So this is the cause of the change in plans. David pet the puppy behind the ears, and then it bites his hand off. "Now that I'm complaining, I've been told she orders a mean takeout," he said loudly enough for Eleanor to hear. "Speaking of, we better order soon, I'm starving." Eleanor laughed, pulling out her phone and ordering from her favorite local place. Eleanor and David spent the evening eating the food, drinking the wine, and swapping stories. After a few hours, and the last drops of wine had been drunk, David spoke up. "Well, it's the last of the wine. I guess that's my cue." He leaned in for a goodbye kiss, and Eleanor grabbed him playfully by the tie. "What's the rush? I haven't even given you the tour." "Oh, bow chicka wow wow." "Well, I wouldn't want to miss that," David smiled as Eleanor led him to the bedroom, followed closely by the puppy who had woken up to the movement. A moment later, Eleanor returned to the hallway with the puppy in her hands. "Nope, you're not invited to this particular party, I'm afraid." "Don't wait up." She winked at the puppy and closed the door behind her. The puppy lay down in front of the door and quietly listened to the muffled voices in the room. Okay. Gross? Eleanor awoke to the feel of wet paws on her face. Oh, it's time skip? Okay. "Dude, why are your feet wet?" She lifted the puppy off of her face and looked around. A beam of light streamed in through the gap in the curtains, and she winced when it caught her eye as she moved. Still feeling a slight dull thud in her head from the night's wine, she grabbed her phone. It was already 11 a.m. and there was no sign of David, who had spent the night. She wandered around the house looking for him, but he was gone. Did he leave already? It is pretty late, so maybe he had things to do. He could have said bye, though. Eleanor spoke her thoughts a bit loud to the puppy she was still carrying around. "Ah, is that why your feet are so wet?" she exclaimed, noticing David had left the toilet seat up. Weird. "And right on my face, dude, that's so gross." She set the puppy down and washed her face. The puppy sat nearby, unaware that he could possibly be the cause of the fuss Eleanor was making. After getting washed up and dressed, Eleanor went to the kitchen to get some coffee, but realized they were out of milk. Oh, imagine if he turned up right now with some coffee and a donut. Eleanor spoke wistfully as she checked her phone for messages. Not even a message to say you were heading out, eh? Eleanor clicked her tongue before deciding to give him the benefit of the doubt. "Hey David, had fun last night, though I didn't hear you head out in the morning. Let me know when we can meet up again." Alright, now that I've put the idea in my head, I really want that donut. Eleanor grabbed the puppy's harness and dangled it in front of a now very excited puppy. Eleanor yawned as they walked along the street to the coffee shop. She was mostly running on autopilot until a piece of paper was pushed into her hands. She looked confused and started to process what the person was saying. "Lost, please call me if you see them around." Eleanor blinked a few times as her eyes tried to focus on the paper. It was a lost dog poster with 2 dogs on it. Wait a second, Eleanor thought. I know these dogs. They were the 2 dogs that had barked at her and the puppy before. She looked up at the person who had handed her the poster, and it was the same lady from before. "They got out of the garden somehow last night, and I hadn't seen them since." The lady pleaded. "Please, if you see them around, just call me. My number's on the poster." "I do hope you find them," Eleanor replied, putting the paper in her pocket, and started to leave as the woman moved on to another passerby. They were pretty aggressive dogs, though, so I hope they don't hurt anyone, Eleanor thought to herself as she continued down the street. It was already dark when Eleanor checked her messages for the umpteenth time. Still no response from David. Nothing at all, man. He's even left the messages I sent this morning unread. What a dick. Eleanor grumbled to herself as the puppy curled up on her lap. They had gotten along so well up until this point. Then they finally... What was that? Or was that it? Got what he wanted and then got lost? Never would have put you down as the kind of guy who would ghost. Eleanor sighed and grabbed her jacket, and the puppy excitedly wagged its tail. Sorry, pup, just want to take a walk by myself this time, clear my head and all that. Eleanor grumbled to herself as she walked up the street. These things happen. Not everything works out. People aren't always what they first seem, she told herself. It didn't help. She was still annoyed. She started to kick a small round pebble down the empty street as she walked. As she tried to kick it slightly further to each kick, she could feel herself coming down. Nearing the end of the street, she looked towards the open gate to the park. There wasn't anyone around, so she took a few steps back. She was aiming for a goal with this stone that had been with her this whole journey. She ran towards the rock and threw her strongest kick. She missed, and as her leg flew up in front of her, the other leg, unprepared for the force, followed suit. Eleanor landed unceremoniously on her back. She tried to throw her hands behind her to stop the fall, but they didn't help. Eleanor sat on the ground for a minute before she burst out laughing. Suddenly, compared to lying in the street after a failed stone kick, her other problem seemed like less of a big deal. To hell with him. There'll be others, Eleanor told herself as she picked herself up off the ground. Ouch, her palm stung as she rubbed the dirt and bits of stone off of them. She had scraped them pretty well, but nothing a bit of disinfectant wouldn't sort out. It wasn't long before she was back home in a much better mood than she left. Hey there, puppy. Eleanor went to ruffle its fur, but it started sniffing at her hands and whining sadly. Don't worry, little buddy. Just had a little tumble. I'm a bit clumsy sometimes, she said reassuringly. She went to wash the remaining dirt and tiny stones out of her hand and applied the disinfectant. She winced as it stung her hands. Well, aren't you just the sweetest, she said at the puppy, who still seemed to be sad that she had hurt herself. Eleanor yawned. It was getting late. I'll be right as rain after a good night's sleep, she said, petting the puppy as it curled up into its bed. Eleanor woke in the morning with the feeling of something sitting on her. She blinked a few times to focus her eyes. It was the puppy, of course. Good morning, little guy. I need you to remember to close my door when I'm going to bed. Can't have you making a habit of this, she chuckled. Okay, let's go. I have to get up for work. She asked the puppy to move, but it didn't budge. Actually, it wasn't moving at all, unlike its usual playful self. The puppy just sat on her chest and stared at her. You're freaking me out a little here, Eleanor laughed nervously. She tried to shift her body over enough to make the puppy jump down, but found it hard to move at all. Instead, it seemed like the puppy was getting heavier. Okay, puppy, that's enough. Get down, Eleanor spoke firmly. I can't do that, Eleanor. Eleanor's eyes widened. Did you just... The puppy simply stared back at her. Did she imagine the voice? It didn't look like its mouth moved, so how could it speak? What are you saying, Eleanor? It's a freaking dog. That's why it can't be speaking. Her thoughts started to rush. Eleanor again tried to wiggle free, but the weight increased, seemingly pinning her under her own blanket. Get off, Eleanor shouted. I can't do that, Eleanor. The voice replied again. What is going on? Am I dreaming? Is this a sleep paralysis thing? You are not dreaming. What is going on? She asked, her voice shaking. I'm going to protect you. Protect me? Like I protected you from the orange one and the two loud ones. The orange one? Loud ones? Eleanor was confused. Wait, does that mean Marm and those dogs that went missing? And the one that hurt you at night? Hurt me at night? What does that mean? You won't need to scream again. She screamed, huh? Wait. My eyebrows aren't wiggling as they should. Ugh. What is with my character's eyebrows? That's too weak. What happened to my eyebrow power? It's gone. But anyways, you won't need to scream again. Bomb chicka wow wow. Wait, what do you mean? No way, that wasn't... Wait, what did you do? The puppy simply stared at her. What did you do? I protected you. They will never hurt you now. Eleanor thought back to the missing animals and David's disappearance. Oh God. Suddenly, him not responding made sense. Oh please, no, what did you do with David? The puppy didn't respond, but turned its head towards the window that faced the garden. She thought back to the dirty footprints, the wet paws after she showed the puppy how to wash the dirt off. The horror she felt continued to grow. And you. The puppy's head snapped back to face her. It seems you still need to be protected. Protected from what? From yourself. She thought back to the night before when she had fallen, her scratched palms. But that was just, Eleanor started to explain. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything. Eleanor watched in horror as the creature started to shift and change, parts of its body twisting and turning in ungodly ways. She heard the creaks and snaps of the creature's bones as it reformed itself from the puppy she knew to the creature that now sat upon her. Tendrils extended from various parts of the creature's body and pinned her down, wrapping around her body. Maybe kinky. And I've learned from the others that I've failed to protect. Others? What did it mean by others? Eleanor thought to herself, her mouth unable to speak the words. Did it do this to the others before? Or before her? I have learned a human's greatest enemy is themselves. It wasn't until a cold slimy tendril pushed its way into her mouth and grasped into her tongue that she understood what it meant. There was no escape now. She couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't even bite her own... Why would you bite your own tongue? Are you saying that people would bite their own... I mean, I'd be like, alright, well, you're a good puppy, but we're gonna have to... You know, if I was the main character, I'd just be like, okay, well, that's cool that you're a demon dog. But, yeah, that for one, I'll tell you who to kill, okay? Two, those were screams of pleasure. You can't kill people because, you know, screaming of pleasure, okay, thanks. And, you know, you don't put a tentacle in my mouth, okay? You can do that just to people I tell you to, like, hey, I dislike this person, you can tentacle fuck their mouth, okay? And, I'll just tell you to do that. But this dog's getting way ahead of themselves. Apparently the other owners just bit their tongues, so that's just one of the variables. I don't know who would do that, but, you know. Wait, that ends there? What? It just ends there? Zoom. It just ends there, okay. And it's like no music. Wait, also is there no music? Or wait. Oh, wait. The entire time I was talking, saying there's no music, my headset died. My headset was dead the whole time. Okay, let me plug it in. Alright, anyways, so I plugged in my headset only to discover that, yeah, music was playing, but middle of the Let's Play, my headset just turned off without informing me, so the entire time I was playing with zero audio. It's kind of awkward. But apparently there was music the entire time. But I think what I'd do is, I'd, maybe change the part where things get more in the deep end of things at the end and maybe make it more spooky sounding. Because there's only like 2 songs in this. They don't 100% fit, but I don't know. I'll do the a little editing just to make it maybe add up a little better, in my personal opinion. But either way, that was Poppy. A little rough around the edges, I'd say, compared to all the other visual novels I read. This one seemed like it darted around setting up the characters and her life events and, you know, going to the park and seeing 2 dogs bark at her aggressively just to set up multiple things for the dog to kill, but it just all felt like mostly filler to what was about to happen. Well, basically, it's like, we start the game like this in the main menu, where it's like, okay, we know the puppy is bad, or evil, because there's tentacles on this main menu page. And it takes the roughly almost 35 minutes to reach that point of discovering that it's not so innocent, even though we know it's not innocent because of the main menu. Only to find out that it's like evil, or, you know, misguidedly evil. And rightfully, I mean, you could probably train it to be, and maybe not so evil pet, but one with weird magical crazy powers that could really end people's and things' lives easily, if properly trained. But instead the dog wanted to shove a tentacle into their owner's mouth. But I don't know, it's like, it took a long time for, like, the punchline of the plot to take the predictable twist. So it's like, I think you need to do a better job setting up the story elements, because it was just like, okay, well, we know it's evil. When's it going to be evil, and then what? And we find it turns evil at the very end, and then it ends. It just kind of feels like missing potential besides rough around the edges and setting all of that up, because that was like 34 minutes of, like dating a guy and 2 barking dogs and all that reading. Like 98% of the story was setting up basically victims for the dog to kill. And it just felt like that's basically it. Was just like, I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe people will be able to word it better than I am. It just felt like it was a way too prolonged, or it was more. The game was longer than it really needed to be for the amount of material that it's running with. Because the running material is owner finds dog. Dog is more than one. You know, the dog isn't so innocent, and dog probably definitely is going to kill these things I'm bumping into. When's the dog going to become evil? And then it took 35 minutes for that to happen. It just felt like it could have been 15 to 20 minutes and nothing would have been lost, you know? But that's at least my suggestion, is it doesn't need to be so long, and the punctuation and, you know, actual, like, quotations, more commas being used, punctuation, grammar, and to use dashes when things are interrupted. Those kind of common English things in visual novels probably needs more proofreading and all that kind of stuff. But that would be my suggestions. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please leave a like, comment, hit that subscribe button, become a fellow subscriber, hit the notification down below for updates on my videos. Thank you for watching, until the next time.